Okay, so one thing I suggest to you, okay, if you have notes out or you have something to write on, you have your unit schedule, something to keep track. Wow, you can actually see it. I'm excited. Okay, here we go. Okay, remember, hey, guys, folks, okay, in between each one, I want to talk, okay? So we're going to get quiet right away because I have 40 questions here. So Weber's law has to do with difference threshold. So difference is when we first detect a change in stimuli. Okay, so here, Weber's law says that it has to be proportionate. Okay, it's not going by a set amount. So 10 and 12 pounds, I can probably tell the difference, but I'm going to need more of a difference to tell 100 and 102. So when we watched that video, he was playing the Star Wars music in his car, okay, and it was harder to tell the difference between between 25 and 30, and when compared to 5 and 10. Okay, so the more intense, the more of a difference there has to be. Awesome. I have one person's real name. Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Hey. Okay. Sensory adaptation is when you fail to realize, okay, that because your senses adapt. Okay, so you probably have had this, or you'll be walking around holding your phone, looking for your phone. Okay, so you've adapted to those senses. Yeah, getting used to it. So like jumping in the lake and you get used to it. Okay, there is only one binocular cue listed on here, and that's retinal disparity. Okay, so retinal disparity and convergence are the two binocular cues. So here, okay, if I were to go and I close my left eye and I block the yellow, when I close my other eye, my thumb appears to move. Okay, it's because I have a distance or difference between my retinas. Okay, the other binocular cue is convergence, which is crossing our eyes. Okay, and I told you that you would get linear perspective and convergence mixed up, which you did. Okay, so convergence, crossing your eyes. Linear perspective is when you draw parallel lines and they appear to meet in the distance. Okay, that's a monocular cue, not binocular. Good. Okay, this here, okay, the first two are just distractors. So it's frequency versus place theory. Okay, and remember I told you the visualization, okay, that if you picture yourself on a roller coaster, you're high on the you're at the highest part of the roller coaster, okay, or excuse me, highest place of the roller coaster. And then as you get lower, you increase frequency, okay? So the place is going to be probably, or that will help us perceive higher pitches. Okay. All right. The cochlea. Okay, the cochlea cells. Okay, the cochlea is in the ear. That's where transduction takes place. The hair cells are located within the cochlea. Okay, this is all hearing. Okay, so the occipital lobe we know has to do with vision. Okay, so I would cross out cochlea and hair cells right away because those both have to do with hearing. Okay, the rods and cones, yep, I could see that, but those are located in the retina. Okay, the feature detector cells, this is the one that's on your FRQ. Okay, and we talked about how they are nerve cells in the brain, okay, that are responsible for detecting shapes, angles, and movement. Okay, so that's what the feature detectors are. I actually have a different thing here than what I put in your notes. We've established this. I'm mean. Okay. All right. Okay, so this here, okay, the context effects, okay, you would have been correct with context effects. Context effects are a type of top-down and influenced by top-down processing. So the context that I'm in, okay, is something that I am looking at and working my way down to the sensory process. So this would be top-down processing. Bottom-up processing is going to be working from my sense receptors up to my brain. Okay, so that is going to be when we listen to the music without the lyrics. Okay, so, and then transduction is what? That's an important one.
It changes the vibrations to
Yep, so in the eye, transduction is changing the light waves to a neural message in the retina, and in the ear, in the cochlea, it's changing the vibrations to a neural message. Good. Okay, so when you use parallel processing, okay, what's happening here is we're processing many things simultaneously. So we talked about this with vision, and we have the example of the bird, okay, that you can process the shape, the depth, the movement, the color. Okay, parallel processing is just working through any problem. So here, melody, lyrics, volume, all of those would be processing together. We just talked about this. Okay. Good. You could write that down if you don't have it. Okay, this is something you must know. Okay, changing the stimuli to a neural impulse. Good. All right, I want to go over this as review. Where's the base layer membrane? Yes, it's in the cochlea. The hair cells line the base layer membrane. Where are your ossicles? What are they? The tiny bones in your middle ear that send the vibrations. And then your tympanic membrane is also called what? Eardrum. Okay. So, okay, for both of these, for both vision and hearing, you need to know the correct order. Okay? So cornea, pupil, lens, retina is the correct for the eye. For the ear, okay, you have the ear, the auditory canal. What comes next? Eardrum. What comes after the eardrum? Yep, the ossicles. Okay, shh, listen, ossicles. And then it's the oval window. What does the oval window vibrate? The cochlea. Okay, and then cochlea we'd break down, but it would go cochlea to auditory nerve.
Is there a question like that?
Yes.
There's so much.
Not as much as last time.
No. Okay, so with sensation, it's meaningless. We're detecting it with our sense receptors. Interpretation with perception, we're making a meaningful whole. We're using our brain. So I could look at sensation is to the retina as perception is to the occipital lobe. Okay, so I can look at things like that too. Okay, so I'm going to leave this up here. Okay, this is another one of your FRQ terms. Okay, and it's the Gestalt grouping principle that fills in gaps to create a complete whole object, if you're looking for a concise way to say that. Because I'm sure you're going to be able to explain what closure is, but I like how concise this is. Okay, I am going to be expecting, and especially with this FRQ, that you have those definitions, because that might help you answer the question. Okay, I think it would be harder to just straight answer the question without having the definition. Maybe independent and dependent variable, you could just write the independent is this, the dependent is that. Okay, but the other ones, I think the definition will definitely strengthen. Yes. Oh, boy. I think if you have the definition and draw a picture, that'd be fine. But not just the picture.
How do you say that word?
Kinesthesis.
What is it?
Good. Nice job. Okay, there's only two. Okay, listen. Okay, there are only two chemical senses. Olfaction, which is smell. Gustation, which is taste. Okay, so the molecules themselves, okay, are going to go into the taste buds. Okay, and then it's going to trigger the neural impulse. The molecules go to the olfactory receptors in the nose. All right. So with these, okay, with these types of questions, I've seen sometimes on the AP test that they give you a diagram, okay, especially with like closure, okay, but sometimes it might be a description like this, okay, creates depth by drawing trees so they overlap. That overlapping is that inner position, okay, so you could see. So retinal disparity is a binocular cue, okay, and it doesn't really have to do with the drawing. The linear perspective is what? Yep, the lines converging in the distance. And then what's texture gradient? Well, the hazy, that's atmospheric perspective. Okay, texture gradient. Okay, so I can see the detail, like I can see the Yeti on that mug, but if in the way back, I wouldn't be able to see it. Okay, so I can see the details closer. Yes, I can see the ribbon. Yes, I can read your ID on the bottom from here. No, I'm just kidding. It's worded weird. I ran out of room. Good. Okay, so even though when I see a book and then I open the book, okay, and it changes shape, I still perceive it to be a rectangle. Okay, that's shape constancy. Size constancy would be even if I took the book and threw it in the back of the room, I know it's not shrinking. Okay, it stays the same size. Good. Yeah. Okay. So, quiet. Sensory interaction is what we did with the starburst. Okay, so taste, smell, texture, sight, and experience. Okay, that sensory interaction. One sense depends on another. Okay, so if I couldn't smell, like when I plugged my nose, it was hard to taste. Okay, sensory adaptation is getting used to a consistent stimulus. Okay, so if I'm wearing my watch, okay, I get used to that. Perceptual adaptation was the goggles. Okay, so you adapted to a changed perceptual field. And then context effects, there's like kind of the setting that you're in. So the example I talked about is let's say you see me in the classroom, but you see me over in Conant. You might be like, Mrs. Severson? Okay, because you normally don't see me over there. Good. Okay, So I actually took relative motion off, okay, of relative motion is something different. The phi phenomenon is like the light shows, okay, so the light's moving in quick succession. Okay, so I want to go over this. Okay, signal detection theory. Okay, it explains signal detection, okay, is adding a psychological top-down processing element to absolute threshold. Okay, so a forest ranger, it's probably more important for him to smell smoke, okay, than to smell, perfume. I don't know, I can't think of something. Okay, so let's look at these other terms. Okay, the frequency theory has to do with how we perceive pitch. Okay, and specifically low notes. Opponent process theory is a theory of color vision, and that is going to help explain after images. Okay, young Helmholtz, and I've been trying to change this, that's the same as the trichromatic theory, which is we have 3 different cones, red, green, and blue. Okay, so young Helmholtz, have been trying to change to trichromatic, but I forgot on that one. Okay, good. So with this, the small fibers, the small fibers are going to be perceiving pain, so that opens the gate. And then if we have the large fibers, what we're going to do is that's like with the massage or the warmth, those are going to be active so the small fibers can't be. Charlie, what are you doing? Yeah. All right. So this is an example of context effect. So it influences our detection or perception. The perceptual adaptation, which a lot of you selected, those were the goggles. So I adapt to an artificial visual field. Think of it like sensory adaptation, except it's with perception. And then proximity is a Gestalt grouping principle. Okay. This is, nociceptors. Nociceptors are going to be our pain receptors. Feature detectors are the brain cells that help pick up those shapes, angles. And then the hair cells don't be picked. Vestibular has to do with the vestibular sense. Okay, so here's our difference. Here's what you have to think about with hearing loss. This is important. Okay. The conduction is the outer and middle ear. Okay. The sensory neural, where does transduction happen? In the ear. The cochlea. Okay, so from the cochlea on is sensory neural. Cochlea, auditory nerve, sensory neural. Those are the only ones. Every other structure, okay, is going to be conduction. Now, if it says something, the hair cells are damaged. Hair cells are in the cochlea, so that is sensory neural. Okay, so when it becomes a neural message, is sensory neural hearing loss. Okay, so here, okay, anything that's going to ask about a figure standing out from a background, okay, so if you were to stare at a black and white picture and the black is a vase, okay, and you notice the vase would be the figure, the background's the white, okay, so when you're looking at the white, that's the figure, and you see the faces, okay, so sometimes you'll see a picture like this, like I said. Okay, so this one, okay, yeah, this we just talked about, okay? The vestibular sense is your head, your keeping track of your head's position and movement. Okay, so the semicircular canals are located in the inner ear. Okay, so here's the cochlea. The semicircular canals sit up here. Okay, listen please. Okay, it functions much like it. So the fluid and the hair cells in the semicircular canals are going to give us our sense of balance, which is the vestibular sense. Okay, so if you were to have an inner ear infection here with the semicircular canals, you'd have like vertigo, okay, where everything would seem like it was moving and you would have a hard time balancing. Sorry, I had 2 of these. Yeah, well, I worked 45 minutes and then none of it saved, so I had to redo it. I was so happy. Okay, good. Frequency theory, low frequency. Ten seconds for this one. Okay, the pupil is the adjustable opening. Okay, so I'm making them 15 seconds so we can get through. Okay, absolute threshold. Okay, please listen. Okay, absolute threshold is when we first detect a stimulus. So I'm not going to ever have you interpret that this is lower, this is higher, whatever. Okay, but if he can first detect it, let's assume that it's a lower threshold for it. Again, 15 seconds for these. Good. Very good. Ten seconds. Okay. Good. Okay, so when we look at sounds, okay, which ones are were hardest to detect? Yeah, in front, on top, directly behind, because they hit both ears at once. Okay, they hit both ears at once. So if you only had one, you'd have a hard time locating sound. Harder time. Eek. Okay. Let's go over these because one of these will be on the test. Okay. So, opponent process theory is the one that explains after images, what I just showed you. If you stare at a blue and then you see a yellow or whatever it is. Okay. The next part, or what we have to look at, the opponent process, is that in our retina we have opposing colors. So black and white, red and green, blue and yellow. That's all in your notes. Okay, so that best explains after images. Okay, the trichromatic theory best explains color blindness. Okay, and that's that we have red cones, blue cones, and green cones. And if we're colorblind, one of those sets of cones isn't working. Okay, so those are the two different theories of color vision. Okay. Hair cells. Okay, hair cells have to do with transduction. Okay, so they're lining the base layer membrane inside the cochlea. So this picture kind of shows it. Okay, so here you would have the hair cells within the cochlea. Okay, on the base layer membrane. Okay, so I know I said that anything that is what and what is sensory neural. Cochlea and auditory canal, or inner ear, okay? Or not auditory canal, auditory nerve, my bad. Auditory nerve, cochlea, sensory neural deafness. If I said the ossicles were broken, I don't know if that can even happen, conduction deafness. Okay, look at this picture. Okay, what we have here, okay, the direction of light goes all the way to the back of the eye, the photoreceptors. So these are cones, these are rods. Okay, and then we have the bipolar cells that are linked to the ganglion cells. The ganglion cells converge to form the optic nerve. So think of it like the threads on a rope. The threads are the ganglion cells, the rope's the optic nerve. Yep. The other one here, okay, we didn't talk about anything like olfactory. We didn't do any biological aside from the olfactory bulb, okay, and then that it was processed by the hippocampus and auditory nerve, or excuse me, hippocampus and amygdala. Auditory nerve is going to be the hair cells activate the auditory nerve. Okay, listen, if you put perceptual adaptation again, okay, I would write that down as something to study. That was the goggles, okay? Perceptual set is a predisposition to act a certain way or think a certain way. So if I'm watching a scary movie, it changes my predisposition for perception. Okay, so now I'm going to perceive the wind rattling as a burglar or somebody's out there because I was watching a scary movie. 10 seconds. Good. Last one. There we go. Okay, if you have any questions, come down and ask me.